So I want us to be able to fetch a single chat, right, based off of the chat history that we select. So if I select this chat history, or this one, or this one, or this one, you see that it keeps changing. So now that we have these new IDs or different IDs, we are going to, based off of that, we are going to display the chat that belongs to that user, that chat history, right? So in order for us to be able to do that, let's not waste too much time. The first thing we are going to do is, let me quickly bring this one here. Then we'll go straight into the back end. Okay, then we'll go to the routes, the chat routes here, right? Then we'll come right below over here, you can just copy this, enter, and then paste that, right? Then now that we have this, we can simply just make this this part, or this path that we have here, we can make it dynamic, right? So having that worked out, what we are going to do is we're just going to come here and name this chat. Okay, then after that we just take this and make it a chat model. Then we'll make it a find one, so we just want to find one. Then for this one that we want to find, we want to find a chat by two properties, right? We want to first of all find it by the ID, the chat ID, right? So we can simply do that by taking the ID from the request.params.id, since that's what we wrote here, right? Then we can also take the you can also check for the user ID. So we need to make sure that you're getting a chat by this ID, and then we can also match the chat and make sure that, oh, even though we've gotten a chat by this ID, let's make sure that the chat belongs to the logged in user, right? The user that is logged in. So we're just passing. So if you remember, maybe some people might be confused, this is just the same as this, right? So we are checking for both properties, the ID property and then the user ID property. But I mean, there's no need to like rewrite it over and over again. So it's just simple, we just leave it like this, since it's just the same thing, right? The same property name, right? So now that we have this, we are just going to send chats, right? So JSON chats, right? Yeah, so this is it. So yeah, I think it's just chat. So this is it, right? Now that we have this, let's just copy this error. Let's copy this error and then paste it here, and then we say so we say error fetching chat. Then we'll just come and copy this one and then paste in here. We forgot to do that. Then we say error fetching user chat, right? So now that we've been able to set this up, what we want to move on to next is we want to go to the front end and then set up the API, right? So for that, we just go to the front end, go to API, go to index.js inside the API folder. Then we'll copy this, come a couple of lines down, and then we would paste it. Then we'll just remove this user, and then we remove the s in front. We'll make sure we pass the ID in as a parameter. And then over here, since we set up the routes to be something like this, in the backend, what we're just going to do is we would apply the object literals, the backticks, right? We just apply the backticks, and then I was just passing the ID, right? So yeah, now that we've been able to set this up, what we will do is we'll go to the chat page, right? So chat.jsx, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are just using the same use query that we used at a different place, right? So where did we get that use query from? think we did work on it at I think, yeah, the chat menu. So we just have to go to the chat menu, we copy this, and then we come and paste it here. So we just have to change this chat, and then we would remove this and say fetch chat. Then we will pass in the ID. But where are we getting this ID from? We are getting this ID from use params. So if we want to access this, right, we want to access this, first of all, let's make sure we get rid of the error before I move on to do anything else, right? So I'll just quickly undo this. Now it's saying use query is not defined. Let's import use query. I wanted to show before we import it, but I don't know, it's not showing. So let's just take it from the chat menu. So yeah, use query, we just place the cursor here, Control C to copy that line, and then we paste that line right below here. Then it says fetch chat. So for the fetch chat, we just have to import it, right? But this is not how, since we are passing in an ID here, right? Since you are passing in an ID, we are going to have to come here and then make it look like a function. So you see, so yeah, it becomes like this. But the thing is, where are we getting this ID from? We want to make sure we use this ID, right? We are passing in this ID through okay, so we are passing, wait, what is going on? So we want to pass this ID through into the fetch chat, that is the request.params.id that we set up at the back here, right? We want to pass it in. So how we are going to do that is we are going to use params, a hook that is inside React Router DOM. So if I say something like, in case you want to verify, right? If I say something like params, use params, and we import, right, and I log out what params is. So if I log it out, you see it. Let me quickly do Ctrl+Shift+I to open up the inspect element. So you can see this is the params. You see we are having an ID inside, so there's no need to rewrite params again. All we have to do is pass the ID, or take the ID object inside the use params hook that we are getting out, or like this one, right? We just take the ID out of it, and then we pass that ID here. So you realize that once we do this and we log out our data, yeah, you can see that this is what we are getting over here, right? So now that we have been able to work on this, I want us to move on to displaying the data right inside our project, right? So the first thing we are going to do here is we just have to clean this up. Then right after cleaning it up, what we'll do is we just come below here, just right below here. Then we'll say this. So this is what we'll say. We'll come and check. We'll say, oh, let's take this data right, as we got, right? Then you remember that when I was checking it here, we saw history, right? So we need to go through the history of this data and then map through. So we map through it, and then we get the message and also the index of the array of each item inside the array, Then right after that, inside here, we just have to open up this empty fragment. We copy this div, and then we would paste it here. Okay, now now that we have these things working, right, we want to work on a few things. The first thing is the class name. Let's make sure we check for the class name here. So for the class name, we want to check the row. So you see that each and every single message here has like parts and like row and stuff like that, right? So this one, you can see that the row is user, right? So we want to check for that. So based off of that, we can pass in the class name that is supposed to have, right? So you can say message dot what row, and then we say if the message dot row is equal to user, then if it's equal to user, then give us message user. Okay, but if it's not equal to user, just give us message. Okay, so we've been able to set up the class name like how we are supposed to, and right after that we need to make sure that we are passing in a key. Okay, so the key is definitely going to be the index of every item in the array, and then right after doing that we need to pass in the results, right? The results or the message, the actual message text, right? So for that, we all know that if AI sends a response, it becomes a markdown. So we have to use a React markdown, right? So we just say markdown, then we just import it. So the markdown is imported, and inside the markdown we can now pass in what we need to pass in. So we say message dot parts, then we take the first one, right? Then we just take the text, right? So this is basically how it will be. So if we change, you get it. If we change, okay, it's going to have to load and stuff, so don't worry if you're not seeing it, and then we'll handle the loading state, right? So now that it's here, right, let's quickly work on like a few things. So we want to check for a few things. Let's come here and say that if it's pending, right, if it comes as a pending, or if it's loading, give us loading, right? But if it's not and it's an error, I want you to give us something. Oh, went wrong. And if it's none of that, you can just give us the data. So you can see, if I come here, okay, so this is hello ma. This one is supposed to give us the hello, right, and stuff like that. So this is how it's supposed to work, right? So we just have to use mutation. We'll work on the use mutation, and the use mutation is what is going to allow us to go through all these things without facing too many lagging times, and also too many errors or bugs in the process, right? So yeah, that's basically it. So what we are going to do is, let's quickly close this, we don't need it again. Then we are going to pass the image element over here. So over here we just check, we say if the message has image. So if the message.image exists, we want to render and you realize that when we were working on the image something, we were using this IK image thing, right? This IK image components that we got from image kit. So ik image. It has been imported nicely. Then right inside here we would use the path. Oh yeah, I forgot, we have to pass this id in too as well. Yeah, you have to pass the id in too as well. Yeah, so yeah, so the path here, the path is definitely going to be the message.image. Then right after doing that, we make sure that we pass the class name in. So the class name is going to be what? Attachment image, because if you remember, we did work on this, I think, in the new prompt, and you remember this is the attachment image. So you can, let's just copy this so that it will be faster. Just copy this and we'll place it inside here. So message.image, okay. Then right after working on that, we want to add the loading, how our loading will work, and then we just use lazy loading. So lazy loading, so loading, we use the lazy loading. Then we want to check for the quality, right? So we will use this one. Then inside we pass in an object of a few values. We say when it's active, true. So when it's active, let's set the quality to 20. And that's basically it. So now that we've been able to set it up in this way, we are actually set for setting up a single chat page, or fetching a chat, just a single chat, right, for the page. Okay, so that's basically it. In the next video, in the next part, we are going to be looking at use mutation and how it can help us improve our project and optimize it for a better performance. All right, so yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one.